Hi, it's Cara Brown, and this is Watercolor Conversations. It's a place where I share my love of watercolor and my seeking, my teaching, my discoveries, the connections I see, and just in general what it's like to be alive at this time here on planet Earth. I hope that this meets a part of you that's longing to be met. Thanks for being here. Okay, here's a new one. This one I'm doing by special request. My very amazing mama asked me to record the one on work. And if my mother has a religion, she is a fundamentalist about the virtue, the value of work. So that's exactly what I called this one. I called it The Virtue of Work. And here's what I shared. Families have cultures, and my family culture surrounds two things: food and cooking, and work and being productive. My dad was a high school teacher, and before my mom went to work full-time when I was in junior high, we had both of them around all summer long. It was a summer time full of doing stuff. My mom made jam and bread, and they both worked on projects around the house. And of course, my dad planted the incredibly huge vegetable garden and the orchard, which then, of course, made the fruit for mom's jam. There was fence building and path laying and patio building and planting and weeding. And then my brothers made a tree fort in the oak tree on the side yard. My dad worked on his ceramics too. He threw pots and made sculptures in the studio in our garage. Mom taught me how to sew, and I made clothes for my dolls and then for myself. I remember making a drawstring, peplum sleeved little kind of peasant girl dress, feeding the elastic through the pouch that I made with a big safety pin. In 1973, we had a bigger house built up on the hill, and there were more projects. It was a very 70s Sea Ranch style house with rough cedar siding and no eaves on the slanted side of the house. It's a really cool house. It's still really beautiful. My mom just had it redone outside, and it's gorgeous. But it had big open beam ceilings, and my mom and dad made all the interior doors. So the first door, before we got a bathroom door, was to my bedroom, because I was 12 years old and a girl, the only girl. And so I got a door, and then we got a bathroom door to replace the towel that hung there, the sheet or whatever it was. They built stone paths. One day we had to collect, each of us, 100 rocks of serpentine about cantaloupe size, and wash them off in a big wheelbarrow full of water. And they put them together with cement like grout and built these wonderful, beautiful stone paths that matched the native terrain. My dad, with the help of my brothers, poured exposed aggregate patios and built fences, and then plants went in. My mom tiled floors and counters and an entire sunken bathtub, the walls and everything of their bathroom. We never bought store-bought desserts of any kind. They were always made from scratch, along with breads, jams, egg noodle pasta, pickles. There's a word in Croatian, my mom is full-blooded Croatian, that she uses. It's vridan. That's the masculine version. The feminine version is vridna. It has a complicated meaning. It translates in English to a whole constellation of words that kind of paint a picture, I think. They are active, agile, busy, deserving, diligent, hardworking, industrious, rich, studious, valuable, and worthy. So to be called vridan in my family is a very, very good thing. So I intuitively know what it means, having heard it so much all my life, but it was interesting to me to look it up and see the range of words needed to translate it. And that absolutely reinforces my sense of how it was used. So it means being capable and working hard, which hopefully would lead you to being rich. And someone who was the opposite, my dad would use an expression to describe as having their hands painted on. And it's so funny how all my life I thought that meant they had wet paint on their hands so they couldn't do anything. But what it really meant was they were like a doll that didn't have real hands, but they were as if the hands were on the torso of the doll, painted on as just imaginary two-dimensional things. In my quest to know what being feminine is like, to know how to really find ease in life, I wish that I knew more how to rest and play. That's the other side of this. This has me bemoaning how deep this working hard culture is in me sometimes. Joe and I take vacations, and we often go to the same place. And what I say is that we try on retirement. I paint a lot. He'll sometimes go golfing. We spend time at the beach. We don't eat out very much. We cook and do the dishes and just live life. But painting is hard work, and it isn't play. I'm amazed at how infrequently Joe and I go do something recreational, like head to the beach for a walk or even just go to the movies. Most of the time, this is a lack of energy from working so hard, but some of it is we just don't think of it. We're just not oriented that way. And yet I wouldn't give up knowing how to work and even work hard for anything. Making art is hard. Growing a business is hard. Learning to speak a new language is hard. Mastering a musical instrument is hard. Sometimes marriage is hard. Oftentimes marriage is hard. I see my family and dear friends who are raising kids or have raised kids, and I think being a parent has to be the hardest job there is. But all of these things are so what make life life. Having things like this call from us to effort and to focus is what makes a real life to me, though. I can't imagine living a life that's full of leisure. It's not really life. It's sort of, I went on a date with a guy who was something like 22 years older than I. He was like my mom's age, and he was wealthy, and all he wanted was a travel buddy. And here I was, like 35 years old, and it was so odd. I thought, no, I can't imagine just traveling the rest of my life. There's stuff to do. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but it was just not the right time. I hadn't earned that season of harvest, so to speak. There is the alternative. If someone does not know how to work hard or they don't know the value of working hard, I think it's worse. We live in a manifest world where stuff has to get done to support our physical lives. We have to eat and we have to wear things and we have to live in structures and to get around somehow. So work has to be done. That's the part of the deal of being incarnate. To dishonor this work is to disconnect from the web that supports us, our existence, our lives. And it also disconnects us from our own power, our own capacity to have impact in a real way. I think that all humans want, along with love and belonging, to know that they spend their life in a way that matters to others, to make and thus to be a contribution. Making work real is so in me. I look back at my own progression. I was so inspired to be a life coach. It is in my bones. But after taking all the courses that I took, and when it came down to actually building a practice, I was stymied. I was kind of deer in the headlights, stuck. Something wasn't quite right, and now I know what. What happens in my watercolor groups, though it's not as focused and consciously oriented, is life coaching of a sort. Lives are transforming while they are doing something that is real, that is material, that is manifest. There's real paper and real brushes that our hands are on, and we have something that comes of it, and that's our paintings. A couple weeks ago when I wrote this originally, I had heard an interview of a sociologist from UC Berkeley called Christine Carter, who recently had written a book called The Sweet Spot, How to Find Your Groove at Home and at Work. The sweet spot, as she talked about, was doing work that gives us energy instead of taking it away. It's an ideal, and not all people on earth have the privilege to do this. But I think it's a place to look. especially for those who are either used up by what they do or for those who, for various reasons and life circumstances, are disconnected from their own capacity to work and how good it is for them. It's good for us to have a connection to something that generates energy inside us. That cliche is that has us get out of bed in the morning. There's something vital about how that galvanizes our life force to say, I'm here to do this, whatever the this is. And that's the sweet spot for me. The thing that you'll say, get out of my way, I got to do this. That's ideal. And it's a blessing for the people who do have it. It's such a gift. And if we don't appreciate work, then we don't appreciate the hard work that others do. People who support our lives can be disregarded, and that's just a crime. Work requires fuel. That get out of my way energy has to come from somewhere. And it's great when it can be self-generated, but it also can be put back in us. And I believe it's put back in us with appreciation from other people. It's putting that energy back in the tank. Meister Eckhart is quoted as saying, thank you is a prayer. And I also think that it is the cheapest and most renewable form of energy on the planet. I put in a little note here addressing the audience of my posts. And it doesn't read right if I share it. But the message is that having an audience, having someone who I know is taking in what it is I'm doing, whether it's my spoken word or my written word, is the thing that fuels me to keep going. I've put this podcast out here. There are only a few of them, and there are only a few of you who know that it's here. But knowing that you're here, knowing that I put it out there in the world is what keeps me going. So I'm grateful for you being there for the other half of the equation. And for that, I say thank you.